there you had it, the union budget over there. And it's quite striking. There are lots of key aspects of this. I think for most of our viewers watching this bulletin, the big change comes in the tax system. The new tax regime is now the default tax regime. And in case you want to get a few details on that, and over the next couple of hours, we will be splitting it up and explaining it to you. But 7 lakh is the rebate for no income tax. If you earn up to 7 lakh rupees under the new tax regime, you will not be paying tax. So that's gone up from 5 lakhs to 7 lakhs. There are different slabs which have been announced under the new tax regime. It's 0 to 3 lakhs, no tax, nil, 3 to 6 lakhs, 5%, 6 to 9, 10%, 9 to 12 lakhs, 15%, 12 to 15 lakhs, 20%, and above 15 lakh at 30%. But I think, Sonia, the key point, the new tax regime, that's the default one. But what they've said is you can still use the old tax regime. So a lot of people need to figure out what works for them. So that needs to be...
No, and remember our big focus, Vishnu, this really is a big bang budget because these are huge changes in the tax regime. And remember, you've got an election coming up. So as we said, this is budget 2023, but the target is mission 2024. Yep. And 9 key state elections also in the run-up to that. You've also got major, and if you look at the big numbers, you've also got major expenditure and investment, infrastructure growth, a major capex hike there. So Priyanshi is giving us all the details on the big budget highlights, but let's just go through all those big income tax numbers. We also have our special guest with us. We'll be going to bureaus across India. So first, if you could go across to you with your initial reactions to this budget. Now, this, like last year, this is really seeing a complete... It's a vision statement of the Modi government in a sense, outlined there by Nirmala Sitharaman. It's about inclusion, it's about infrastructure investment, Mr. Mehta, and it's about bringing also, she talked about financial inclusion. We've seen the rise in EPFO numbers. We've seen the rise also in the use of digital payments, of UPI, and the big changes on tax. What's the big highlight for you?
No, so the big highlight for me is the increase in capital investment. I think 7.2 lakh crores last year, which has been increased to directly around 10 lakh crores with a provision.
That's up by 33%.
What is, that's not the full story. She's actually made a provision for 13.7 lakh crores central, which means 10 lakh crores of direct investment and 3.7 lakh crores of grants.
Just to interrupt that thought, 874 up is the Sensex, 1.48% up. It's going up.
It's going up.
I would suggest that this is a win-win budget as far as the markets are concerned. Go ahead.
No, if you add the numbers and also the state numbers, I counted around 15 lakh crores of capital outlay, which is 5% of GDP. I think India has never been at this level. This is allocated across several sectors of importance. Railways, 2.4 lakh crores. Transport infra, 75,000 crores. I counted nearly 85,000 crores of green growth investments across several schemes, right? So this is a big win for India. This will attract foreign capital. The strategy of the government is to crowd in private investments by making government allocations. So this is highlight number 1. Highlight number 2 is the commitment on fiscal deficit. She has stuck to 5.9% as was indicated in the economic survey and says that we will meet the 4.5% target by FY 25-26. This will be very reassuring to both foreign portfolio investors and foreign direct investors. And then the big announcements on direct taxes. I think this is going to be helpful. It will be popular, but she's only foregone 35,000 crores of revenue. So it's not a big amount if you look at it, right?
You have to see what the new tax regime entails. There is a certain pensionary amount which automatically flows out. So therefore, cash in hand might not necessarily be as impressive as it appears right now.
Yes, it may not be impressive, but again, if you're at the lower end of the scale, it seems your tax liabilities will drop from 15 to 20%, right, up to around 15 lakh rupees.
And she outlined that very clearly, because remember, of course, in that when she was speaking to people before the thing, she said, I am middle class. So the finance minister identifying herself very clearly with the middle class. And I think that's really where the benefit goes. You're not looking at, though there is some rebate on the highest tax slabs, the big benefit is going to the neo middle class, as some would call it, and the middle class. Now, that also would be seen as a great election move with elections coming up.
It's a great election move. I would not discount the announcement of the surcharge rate at the 5 crore plus level, because over the past 2-3 years, there has been outflow of high net worth individuals into tax havens. I think this is to suggest that we are going to be sensible on taxes. But again, the big message is the middle class tax rebates. And if your tax bill is coming up by 20%, you'll be happy with the budget.
There's going to be a lot of people shifting to this new tax regime.
I think even right now, the difference between the old tax and the new tax regime is 10 to 15,000 rupees at the lower end. I think CAs typically tend to pick the new tax regime because the government is going to push this. This is just another measure where that becomes a default choice. I do expect probably after the election, the old tax regime may be discontinued completely. So again, I think there's an encouragement to move to the new tax regime, and a lot of the incentives are also pushed there for people who opt for it.
No, so I think there are 3 or 4 big points. Of course, the tax changes are what interest most people, but the points you made on the increased investment in infrastructure and, of course, the fiscal consolidation, the fiscal discipline, the message that the budget is sending out on that. Let's just listen to some of the highlights of that speech given by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Remember, this is her 5th budget speech, and it's likely to be the final proper budget before the 2024 elections.
In the 75th year of our independence, the world has recognized the Indian economy as a bright star. Our current year's economic growth is estimated to be at 7%. It is notable that this is the highest among all the major economies. This is in spite of the massive slowdown globally caused by COVID-19 and the war. India's rising global profile is because of the several accomplishments: unique world-class digital public infrastructure, example, Aadhaar, CoWIN and UPI. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we ensured that no one goes to bed hungry with a scheme to supply free food grains. The economic agenda for achieving this vision focuses on 3 things. First, facilitating ample opportunities for citizens, especially the youth, to fulfill their aspirations. Second, providing strong impetus to growth and job creation. And third, strengthening macroeconomic stability. To service these focus areas in our journey to India at 100, we believe that the following 4 opportunities can be transformative during Amrit Kal. Priorities of this budget. The budget adopts the following 7 priorities. They complement each other and act as the Saptarishi guiding us through the Amrit Kal. Inclusive development, reaching the last mile, infrastructure and investment, unleashing the potential, green growth, youth power, and financial sector.
All right, so Nirmala Sitharaman outlining some of the key points over here. This is a budget which has been seen as a real winner as far as the markets are concerned, but it is an election budget. Certainly the aspects of income tax, that will be something that will be looked at. Before we look at some of the other points, I just want to mention that there is an incredible commitment to India's green transformation, a budget provision of 35,000 crores towards the energy transition, net zero, 20,700 crores for renewable energy from Ladakh, the National Hydrogen Mission, so 19,700 crores. You know, this, Mr. Maitra, you'd agree, is one of the big highlights in terms of capital outlay.
Yes, I think if you add it all together, it's 85,000 crores across all these budgets. I think it's the largest commitment any emerging economy has made in 1 year to the green economy. I think this is going to catalyze a lot of investments in the areas, right? For example, in hydrogen, we expect investments into electrolyzers and setting up plants. If you look at battery storage, they are going to set up a viability gap funding for 4,000 megawatt hours of batteries. They're numbered there yet, but this is going to incentivize people to invest in battery storage facility. Will decongest our grid a lot. There is a 20,000 crores on the Ladakh grid evacuation, which is going to give boost. 10,000 crores on compressed biogas. There is 30 waste to wealth plants, including a 5% CBG mandate, which will be given to corporates. I think this is a big flip. I think if anyone who's looking at this sector, both investors and companies, as well as startups, I think the government is serious. It has walked the talk on the green transition, and I think we'll see a lot of investments in the next 1 or 2 years.
Just in terms of some of the other big numbers, agricultural credit increased to 20 lakh crores, and the PM Awas Yojana up by 66% to what, 79,000 crores.
79,000 crores.
Right. So those are huge, you know.
I think there is a big focus on agriculture. I think if you look at some of the other announcements.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we also have got all the live reactions coming in from the Confederation of Indian Industry. Nidhi and Nagma are there. Let's just go across to that. Nidhi and Nagma, it's over to you. What are the first reactions coming in from industrialists at CII? Because there have been many big announcements made in this budget.
All right, well, we're live here from CII where everyone's been glued to the Finance Minister's speech. So let's get straight to it. And we have Mr. Mukesh Bhutani with us, who's, of course, the guy that everyone wants to hear from right now. Please explain to us what these new tax slabs actually mean for all of us.
Well, the new tax slabs clearly seem to suggest that the middle class and the lower tax-paying fraternity will get the benefit based on the slab rates that were announced. I think the underlying philosophy being that with the growth potential and the increase in demand, the savings that the individuals will realize, they would like to spend it, and that will propel growth. That's one part of it. I think the larger story on tax collection trends seem to suggest that the momentum that India has gained on tax collection, which is robust all around tax collections, not just on GST, but also on direct tax. She doesn't want to lose that momentum because her giveaway, which she said towards the end, was just about 40,000 crore. And I won't be surprised if in the overall math, it adds up that substantial part of that benefit was given to the low taxpayers. She's also reduced the slabs from 6 to 5, which is simplification. I think it's a good start. Maybe not meeting the expectations that people had to reduce the slabs to 3 or 4. Also, the super surcharge has been reduced. So the effective tax, maximum marginal tax rate with the surcharge that stood at 42.5% has been brought down to 3%. So, you know, there is something for everyone in the budget, at least insofar as personal tax rates are concerned. The last point on capital gains, she chose not to alter the capital gains structure, viewed as complex, a large ask and expectation from the market. So I would have expected that she would have heeded to that expectation, but she hasn't. So I think there is something for everyone on the tax rates and tax slab structure on an overall basis.
तो मुकेश जी, मैं आपसे एक बार फिर से ये बात समझना चाहूंगी कि एक बड़ी खबर जो इस वक्त बजट के बाद निकल के आ रही है चारों तरफ, वो यही कि टैक्स स्लैब में बदलाव जो हुआ है और वो बड़ी छूट है। और अब जैसे 5 लाख तक टैक्स नहीं लगते थे, अब 7 लाख तक इनकम टैक्स नहीं देने होंगे और जो नए टैक्स स्लैब हैं उसमें काफी चेंजेस हुए हैं। तो पहले के मुकाबले जो ये टैक्स स्लैब में चेंज हुए हैं, जैसे 0 से 3 तक तो कोई टैक्स देना नहीं है, 3 से 6 में 5% टैक्स है, 6 से 9 में 10%, और ये तमाम चीजें वो कितना बड़ा बदलाव और कितनी बड़ी राहत के तौर पे हम देखें।
काफी
under the new tax structure, so will this incentivize more people to shift from the old to the new?
टैक्स ज्यादा लोग देंगे क्या?
Certainly, yes. So when we talk about tax rate changes, there are several changes which you need to look into. For salaried, pensioners, and for self-employed. I think what got missed out in the self-employed, आज के regime में 50 लाख तक self-employed professionals के लिए benefit है. Simplified basis पर tax return file कर सकते हैं, 50% उनका standard deduction मिलता है. वो extend कर लिया है. Not just for individuals self-employed, the threshold has been increased to 75 lakhs, but she has increased it even for MSMEs, which means that now MSMEs, rather than maintaining detailed books of accounts and computing their profitability, can also opt for the what is called presumptive basis of taxation. इसका मतलब आपको खर्चे का ज़्यादा हिसाब नहीं दिखाना पड़ेगा. So salaries, individuals, self-employed, pensioners, there is something for everyone in the slab rate changes.
तो बाकी तमाम अब मेहमानों को भी हम शामिल करेंगे और एक-एक करके कि जो अब वित्त मंत्री ने बजट पेश कर दिया है, इंडस्ट्री का पहला रिएक्शन क्या है इस पे? जी, मैं आपसे जी हाँ.
मैं तो अपना सेक्टर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में के बारे में बताऊंगी. इस साल हिस्टोरिकली इट्स द फर्स्ट टाइम दैट द आउटले हैज रीच्ड हिस्टोरिक 2 डिजिट्स. पिछले साल पूरा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सेक्टर की आउटले 7.5 लाख करोड़ था. इस बार 33% बढ़ावत की वजह से ये 10 लाख करोड़ पहुंचे हैं, विच इज द फर्स्ट टाइम एंट्री एंड इट्स अ हिस्टोरिक 33% इंक्रीज. इसके ऊपर बहुत सारे सेक्टर्स में, मैं डिटेल में नहीं जा रहा हूं अभी, बट काफी सारे सेक्टर्स में स्पेशल एम्फेसिस दिया गया हुआ है. रेल सेक्टर, अर्बन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, लॉजिस्टिक्स, प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना, 50 एयरपोर्ट, major emphasis on green energy, the support of PPP to many other sectors not mentioned through the Infrastructure Finance Secretariat, और सबसे बड़े बात है कि जो states को fiscal deficit target दिया होगा, state fiscal deficit of 0.5% is earmarked for power sector reform, which is basically DISCOM reform. तो बहुत सारे sectors में the FM has pressed the button on infra, and I would call it a 10-point booster dose for infrastructure.
और आप इसको अगर नंबर देना चाहें, जैसे हम लोग पहले भी कर रहे थे बात, तो इंडस्ट्री इसको कैसे आंकेगी? अच्छा बजट मान रहे हैं आप इसे, विनायक जी?
देखिए, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सेक्टर से तो हमारे जितने मांगे थे वो मोटे सब पूरे हो गई. So I would give it a very high rating on the outlays and the specific emphasis on areas that industry has been asking for, like municipal bonds has been mentioned as part of the urban reforms package.
This 10 lakh crores, this 33% increase that you talked about, let me get Mr. Ajit Gulabchand to comment on that. How significant is that in terms of the money that the government is putting into infrastructure? Is that going to have a knock-on effect in terms of everything that we want to see, like generating jobs, etc.? Your mic, sir.
Yeah.
It's on.
Yeah. As Vinayak said, that they have increased the expenditure on infrastructure to be done to 10 lakh crores for the first time. It is still less than what percentage we really need in order to grow at a faster rate of about 8%. We need to spend 13% of GDP on infrastructure. So this is not meeting that requirement. However, the increase is more than welcome, because at a time that we are struggling to get growth, which is hovering around 6.5%, which is a good thing, because don't forget, America grew at 6% for 60 years to become the richest nation in the world. So it's not such a big thing. But the fact is that this extra infrastructure will bear a lot of fruit. That continuous increase being done in this area is, in my opinion, a good sign. Besides, the budget does not have so many disruptive things, which might make you think that they haven't done enough. But it's better a quieter budget than something that disrupts.
When you say disruptive, what do you mean? What would have worried you?
Well, it needs a lot more, the reform that we are looking for, which create, for example, when you delicensed everybody in 1991, you created a reform that has rippled for 20 years. Something like this is a little disruptive, but helps. But nothing like that has been done. So in terms of not messing around with the budget too much, given the issues of fiscal deficit, current account deficits, not adequate growth as we would like it, though it is better than most of the world, I think a quiet budget is a good one.
A quiet budget. Mr. Vinod Agarwal is sitting next to you. Mr. Agarwal, how do you look at your first comments on the budget? How do you look at it? I think for a lot of people right now, the tax thing is the big headline because it affects the salaried middle class. And in that sense, when Nirmala Sitharaman said before the budget that she understood what the middle class wanted and she understood their pain, has she, you think, finally listened to them?
Absolutely. I think this is a very good budget, first of all, I would say. And from the auto sector point of view, the allocation on infrastructure, it has been increased substantially, and it is happening over last few years. And the second is, as you know, the auto industry is also going through a lot of transformation and migration to the better fuels. So the focus on all the biofuels, decarbonization, sustainability agenda, green fuels, I think that is very, very commendable. It will help the industry to get into these green fuels. And then, of course, there are a lot of things which are there. For example, the inclusiveness, going to the remote areas. I think a lot of allocations have been made to all these sectors which might have been ignored earlier. So therefore, I would say it's a very, very good growth-oriented budget, and this will put the country for the economy of 5 trillion.
तो आप सभी लोग काफी उम्मीद से हैं और होपफुल हैं, उसको अच्छा बजट मान रहे हैं, और आप लोगों को लग रहा है कि ग्रोथ को, विकास को ये एक गति देगा. अंशुमन जी, आप कैसे रेट करेंगे, और क्या आपको लग रहा है कि जो वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमन ने बात की थी मिडिल क्लास के दर्द को समझने की, तो उस दर्द को उन्होंने समझा है और लोगों में खुशी होगी? क्योंकि ज्यादातर लोगों के लिए, जैसा निधि ने भी कहा, कि हेडलाइन यही है कि टैक्स में बदलाव है, न्यू टैक्स रिजीम की तरफ एक पुश भी दिख रहा है, पर स्लैब्स में बदलाव है और कुछ छूट लोगों को मिलती हुई दिख रही है.
सबसे पहले ये जो बजट है, इसने सारे इम्पोर्टेंट टॉपिक्स, जो करंट टॉपिक्स हैं, सारे कवर किए हैं. आई वुड गिव, चाहे वो ग्रीन एनर्जी के बारे में हो, चाहे टैक्सेशन, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इज अ बिग थिंग. सम ऑफ द
So the big story coming out now is really how the markets are reacting. They already crossed their above 1,000 points. So clearly the finance minister's huge announcements in this budget, and this really has been the most big bang budget Nirmala Sitharaman has done the last 5 years. I think some experts would say it's probably the most ambitious budget she's had in the last 5 years. So let's go across to you first. At the Bombay Stock Exchange, we've seen the markets already crossing 1,000 points. What's the mood there?
Absolutely, Sonia. If you look, the market has crossed 1,000 points, as you said. And joining me is AP Shukla, a stock market expert, as well as he is a CEO. So how do you look at the budget? Last year when we spoke, you were not so happy because a lot of things did not happen for the middle class as well. This year, how do you look at the budget? How do you think the markets will react throughout the day? What is the mood?
You can say market is reacting very, very positive, and market Sensex has today up more than 1,000 point up. So it's showing it is a very positive budget, and they have make highest everyone, industry, personal tax. They have reduced. They have up to 7 lakhs. That is exemption. So you can say industry, capital expenditure, fiscal prudence, and fiscal deficit control. Everything they have taken care, and they have. They are opening so much things in the agri sectors. This. Aviation sector, 50 new airports, and if you say the medical education, 157 nursing colleges, and there are so many things they have announced in this business. You can say this is the election year, next year is election year. So they have open-handed, they had given everything to everyone.
So as a market expert, what are the key points for the market that you think is included in the budget?
In this time, they have उन्होंने कोई छेड़छाड़ नहीं की है. जो हमारा जो कैपिटल गेन टैक्स था, लॉन्ग टर्म, शॉर्ट टर्म, देयर वाज सो मच डिस्कशन. दे आर गोइंग टू डू समथिंग इन दिस. दे हैव नॉट टच दोज थिंग्स. सो दिस इज अ गुड थिंग्स, एंड मार्केट हैज shown this thing. There is a positive attitude.
So not reacting or not changing the tax form has also been one thing because of which we see that the market has is up by more than 1,000 points. We also have some youths over here. They are the students who are studying the market, and they are also you also have been studying as well as looking at the budget. How do you guys, the future, look at the budget? What do you think is in it for you? How do you react since you are studying markets as well?
This is a very future-centric budget. It's not a short-term 2-3 years budget. It's looking at the Amrit Kal, that is 75 to 100 years of independence. So every sector has been touched, and
anything else that you guys would like?
The main focus was on agriculture sector. They are focusing for the I think so because the.
So how do you think this impacts you guys? What do you think is in for you in this budget?
It's a very growth-centric budget, again, because India has a growing economy. It's growing very fast. So this budget is just going to add to the boost of it, especially the capex spendings. This capex spending will also help us when we get into the job market. As we are students right now, once we enter the job market and everything, these capex boosts will also help us, and this will also be good for the Indian economy because it will help in the GDP growth.
Okay,
also.
Sohit, we'll just come.
Or the,
right, lots of reactions there. Sohit, we'll certainly come back to you. Markets well, 1,143 at this stage. Vedant in Barabanki joins us as well. You've got a couple of quick reactions over there before we go across to Priyanshi with the big highlights. Vedant, go ahead.
Well, absolutely, Vishnu. So a lot in the budget for the agriculture sector. Of course, the Agriculture Accelerator Fund, and the Finance Minister also talked about encouraging startups. I have a very interesting guest with me, Padma Shri Ram Sharan Verma, who's known as the high-tech farmer of India. So, of course, he has worked a lot in terms of bringing in new techniques, etc. as far as the agriculture sector is concerned. Sir, आप कैसे देखते हैं बजट को? आप ही बताइए कि कहीं ना कहीं रीओरिएंटेशन की बात करी फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर ने बार-बार, तो क्यों जरूरी कि सब्सिडीज से बियॉन्ड जाकर एग्रीटेक में इन्वेस्ट करना?
नहीं, इस बार जो बजट है हमारे आधुनिक किसानों के लिए बहुत अच्छा बजट है, हमारे लिए बहुत अच्छा है, हमारे भारत के किसानों के लिए बहुत अच्छा है कि सरकार ने सब्सिडी के साथ साथ उन्होंने एक आधुनिक जो हमारे आधुनिक किसान हैं, जो नवाचार करने वाले किसान हैं और जो एक एग्रीकल्चर में एक स्टार्टअप, एक नई शुरुआत करेंगे, उनके लिए बजट है। और जब हम एग्रीकल्चर में कोई नया बीज लाएंगे, नई टेक्नोलॉजी लाएंगे, नई सोच लाएंगे, तो हमारे किसानों की आमदनी बढ़ेगी। आमदनी जैसे हम कोई नया बीज बो रहे हैं, नई टेक्नोलॉजी ला रहे हैं, तो हमारे किसानों की आमदनी बढ़ेगी। जैसे सरकार ने ड्रोन का इस्तेमाल किया है कि नहीं, एक नए यूरिया लेकर के आए हैं, तो सरकार ने बहुत सारे नए काम किए हैं। तो इससे हमारी लागत कम होगी, जो लागत कम होगी तो अंतोगत्ता हमारे किसान के आमदनी बढ़ेगी।
Right. So of course, Vishnu, as he's telling you that investment is in tech, which is the focus of this budget, is ultimately going to increase incomes and productivity and profitability of farmers as well. Vishnu.
Across now to Priyanshi with the big highlights, because Priyanshi, this is a budget which has really had a more ambitious vision than we've seen in the last few years. Remember also this is an election budget, as many are saying. You saw that there's also an irrigation 5,300 crore outlay for Karnataka going to elections just a few months, but it's a larger vision which seems to have got the middle class really happy on taxes. We've seen the markets responding really positively. Is this Nirmala Sitharaman's dream budget?
Well, Sonia, you could call it that. And in the last 5 years, this, of course, was the 5th budget that was presented by the Finance Minister. And since 2018, the normal people were really waiting for a change in the tax rates and the tax slabs. But that had not been happening for the last few budgets since financial year 2018. But now, after 4 years, the tax rates and slabs have been changed. Let's take you through the 5 major highlights that the Finance Minister talked about. Number 1, now under the new tax regime, people with an income of 7 lakh will not be made to pay income taxes. Previously, this exemption limit was 5 lakh. So people till the income of 5 lakh were exempted from paying any direct income taxes. But now that exemption limit has been increased to 7 lakh rupees. So that's definitely a relief for people who were in that bracket of 5 to 7 lakh rupees, as they will now not be it will not be mandatory for them to pay an income tax under the new tax regime. It's important to mention here that these changes are under the new tax regime because, of course, the government has been trying to get more and more people to subscribe to the new tax regime because it hasn't seen many takers ever since it was announced in 2020. So that's one of the proposals that have been made to increase the popularity and increase the new tax regime and people who might be applying for that. Now, to the other major announcements that have been made earlier under the new tax regime, there were 7 tax slabs, but now those tax slabs have been reduced to 5. Let's take you through how this changes your life. Well, earlier, the taxes really started from an income of 2.5 lakh rupees under the new tax regime. But now that has been increased in the tax slabs, that has been increased to 3 lakh rupees. So the earlier tax regime said that there were 7 tax slabs up to 2.5 lakh rupees. There was no tax, but now up to 3 lakh rupees, there'll be no tax. Let's take you through the new tax regime. 0 to 3 lakh rupees, there'll be no tax. 3 to 6 lakh rupees, there'll be a 5% tax. 6 to 9 lakh rupees, there'll be a 10% tax. 9 to 12 lakh rupees, a 15% tax. And 12 to 15 lakh rupees, a 20% tax, and above 15 lakh, it'll be a tax of 30%. So these are the new tax regime, the revisions in the new tax regime that have been announced by the Finance Minister. That will also come as a major relief to the common people. Another important highlight is that the maximum tax rate has been reduced. The Finance Minister said that this will provide a major relief to the common people. Let's give you an example. So anybody who had an individual income of 9 lakh rupees will now be required to pay 45,000 rupees as an income tax. But this is 5% of his income according to the new tax regime. But earlier, they had to pay 60,000. So it is a reduction of close to 25% from that 60,000 to now 45,000 that people with an income of 9 lakh rupees will have to pay. If we give you another example, Somebody with an income of 15 lakh rupees will now be required to pay 1.5 lakh rupees or 10% of their income. Earlier, they had to pay 1,87,500 rupees. So that's a reduction of 20% as well. So this is how the common people will benefit from this. Another highlight is that the salaried class and for pensions, for pensioners, the finance minister has proposed to extend the benefit of standard deduction to the new tax regime. Earlier, this deduction was only in the old tax regime, but that deduction of maximum 52,000 rupees, but now that has been extended to the new tax regime as well. This will benefit salaried people and those availing a pension. Now, the maximum tax rate that was there for the country, that has also been reduced, and that will also come as a benefit to the common people. This would, the overall highest tax rate in our country was 42.74%. But this is among the highest in the world, if I may add. But this has been reduced to 37%. The finance minister has proposed to reduce the highest surcharge rate from 37% to 25% in the new tax regime. And this would result in a reduction of the maximum tax rate to 39%. So the maximum tax rate in our country, which was among the highest in the world, was 42.74%, but that has now been reduced to 37%. Lastly, the limit of 3 lakh rupees for tax exemption of leave encashment on retirement for non-government salaried employees, which was fixed in the year 2002, has now been, the limit was 30,000 per month, but now it has now been increased. So these are the major announcements on the tax front, but this of course will cost the government as well. And let's take you through the government's cost through this. As a result of these proposals, revenue of about 38,000 crores will be foregone by the government. But in addition to that, 3,000 crore will be mobilized. So overall, these new tax proposals will cost the government 35,000 crore rupees.
Just wait, because this really, for this budget, for most of us, is all about taxes. So there are many, many other big headlines also on capex investment and the green budget in a sense. But let's just focus on the taxes. So we have a very special panel with a series of tax experts here. We've got personal tax, corporate tax, indirect tax, and all the various taxes questions to ask. So let's go across first on personal tax, Mr. Divya Baveja. That's what interests most people. Now, we haven't seen changes like this since 2018. So for 4 years, this was perhaps the finance minister's last chance before an election. What's the big headline for you out here?
See, I think the big headline is that the government has been pushing for the new tax regime. When it was introduced, the idea was to make it simple, take away the deductions and just have a simple slabs. And so that was not seeing many takers on that. So I think that is one reason. If you see all the changes that she has proposed are all towards the new tax regime, whether it is the standard deduction, which was not there earlier, whether it was in the context of the slabs, which have got changed.
It's important to explain that to viewers. You're only getting these deductions, which is announced, if you migrate to the new tax regime.
Yes. In fact, also, she's made a very specific point that now it is the default tax regime. So if I were to go and file a tax return today, it would take me to the old regime and I could opt for the new regime. So it is the other way around now. So the new regime becomes the default regime, and then you can go and opt for the old regime. So that is the big difference. And I think when we look at the people who are earning above 5 crores, what she talked about, the rate going down from 42.73 to about 39%, that is again available in the new tax regime. So I think what a person needs to see is under the old regime, where I get all the deductions, is that more favorable to me vis-a-vis the new tax regime, which has the new tax slabs which are better compared to the old regime, and the surcharge and standard deduction. So one would really need to do a cost-benefit analysis and then take a call whether to go for new or the old one. Yeah.
You know, Mr. Malhotra, one of the key points over here is a big benefit is there for the middle class and those who earn up to 7 lakhs. Right? So there is no income tax. That's gone up from 5 to 7. We're talking only about the new tax regime. But by the face of it, this is a huge jump for those. You know, I mean, you don't have to pay taxes between 5 and 7 lakh rupees. This would benefit how many, you know, I mean, what sector? A large number, right?
See, it will benefit large number, but I think the earlier Revenue Secretary in the morning, I think on one of the channels, he was saying that, you know, there are 7.5 lakh taxpayers, individual taxpayers, and out of that, 1 lakh really pay any taxes. So I think with this limit being enhanced from 5 to 7, I think we have to see what is the impact going to be on that
on the overall number of taxpayers.
The 1 crore out of 7.5.
Right.
So now, how much will be that 1 crore? Will it be 80 lakhs, 70 lakhs? So that's what's going to be seen. Whether this 2 lakh really makes a material difference.
Also, the highest surcharge has gone down from 37% to 25%.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, isn't it?
Yes. So again, that is under the new regime. So if someone was under the new regime and was paying almost 43% taxes, now you have a saving of about 4%. So you pay at about 39%. Yeah. So that's a big saving for the people at that level. Yeah.
Ms. Roy, what about on indirect tax? What are the big gains that you see, or do you feel that more could have been done in that area? What do you feel about indirect tax?
So this was actually amongst the shortest speeches on indirect tax. So, but saying that there were some changes announced from customs. She spoke about, priorities around green mobility, about enhancing domestic value addition, and she made certain announcements. So one was with respect to exemption of capital goods, customs duty exemption on capital goods used for manufacturing lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. So that was one. Then she spoke about a reduction in customs duties for import of camera cells for mobile handsets. So there is an aim, there's a clear aim of the government to enhance India as a hub for manufacturing of mobile handsets. We're already the second largest manufacturer of mobile handsets, and I think they want to enhance exports as well as domestic manufacture of
and cigarettes we've seen.
Yes, cigarettes.
ITC shares are defying the stock markets right now.
Yes,
but
yes.
Cigarettes, there's so clear the message there on health as well.
Yes, you're right.
It's
because
sin tax.
Correct. So this is a national calamity contingent duty, which is also collected on cigarettes. This hadn't been tinkered with for the last 3 years. Usually it happens on a year-on-year basis for cigarettes, but it hasn't. But this year's budget has seen an increase there. So yeah,
Right.
so these are the,
We've got some wonderful guests joining us at this stage. Sumant Sinha, the chairperson and CEO of Renew, joins us. We're also joined by Sangeeta Reddy, the joint managing director of Apollo Hospitals. Thank you both very much for being with us. Let me go across to Sumant Sinha first. The outlay, Mr. Sinha, as far as green energy is concerned, is absolutely huge. It's perhaps a record for any country which is a developing economy. So in context, what does this mean for us?
Well, it means, I think, Vishnu, very clearly that the government is taking its obligations on converting India into a green economy very, very seriously. And it's not just doing so in the area of the energy transition, which of course has always been a focus of this government.
Yeah.
They've allocated, for example, 35,000 crores through MOPNG for energy transition, which is clearly meant to look at some of the fossil fuel sectors and see how we can transition those into cleaner areas. And then I think there is, of course, a couple of things that have come in for the clean energy side, which is really the 4,000 megawatt hours of battery viability gap funding, and then also the issue of the Ladakh transmission line, which I think is very interesting because that will lead to the further development of Ladakh, given the fairly good wind and solar resource in that area. But then beyond that, I think the government has really spent a lot of focus and attention on figuring out how to really take the Prime Minister's philosophy of life into a number of different areas and really look at the economy from a circularity standpoint. It includes things like scrapping old vehicles. It includes things like waste to energy plants, also giving credit to various corporates to go green, looking at mangrove plantations and so on. So quite a lot of different things have been thought through in this budget, and a lot of encouragement given not just to the most obvious elements of the clean energy area, but I think trying to really broad base into much more different areas, including by the natural farming as a way to cut down fertilizer subsidy and so on.
Hydrogen mission, an outlay of 19,700 crores. We've spoken about this in the past. The aim is to reach 5 MMT by 2030. That is very much the future, or one of the key steps towards achieving, energy independence. So, do you welcome that step, green hydrogen?
No, of course, Vishnu, and we of course do. I think that the targets that the government has set are very ambitious. 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030, would require almost 125,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity to be set up. Almost a total investment of a couple of $100 billion will have to be made in that. So it's a big target, and it's meant for two things. Number one is to make India energy independent as much as possible, to set the base for that, and also to convert India into a manufacturing destination to export green hydrogen to other countries as well.
Right.
So I think that is really quite a significant step forward. Of course, 19,500 crores, some would argue, given the nature and the ambition of the program, is perhaps a low number, especially given what some of the other countries are doing in the same area.
Sure.
So I think that's something I'm sure the government might look at in the future as we go forward.
I think that's an interesting point, Mr. Sinha. And if I can bring in Sangeeta Reddy on a vision of the government, and you may agree or disagree, but how a vision of the government has been incorporated in these budgets outlays. So you're seeing a big focus on growth expansion. You're seeing fiscal discipline and consolidation coming up as major points. Ms. Sangeeta Reddy, of course, you earlier represented FICCI and also as Apollo Hospitals. Do you think this focus on growth, on fiscal consolidation and discipline is key with India's aim to getting to a $5 trillion economy?
So absolutely, I think it's significant. It is movement in the continued and stated direction of growth for the country with ease of doing business as well, and a good infrastructure and a governance which attracts foreign investment, which brings in other players, which stimulates startups. So this is clearly a growth-oriented budget. In addition, I want to kind of say that the angle which I'm seeing in this budget is also in the year of G20. I think there's a very interesting global outlook strategy. So you're seeing a focus on environment, and you remember the COP obligation that we had, that we would have 50% green energy. So this is movement in that same directions of commitments made to the world. I see the mentions on women and special focus on that. So it's equity, it's environment, and it's growth. So I believe those are a combination, while there's an underlying strategy of infrastructure, which is, one of the triggers for growth or one of the important levers for growth. In addition to that, I think the tax regime and the, continued rationalization of tax regime, making it more friendly, more money in the hands
and
of
in
some,
fact,
I mean,
no, so I think
for
the middle class and for growth, big messages, but for someone from your sector, because education and health, now that's something that everybody argues that education and health is something which is never given the share of the GDP that it should get. Do you feel that health, in a sense, that sector has been left behind, especially given the 2 years of the pandemic that we've seen?
So I would have wished for more statements specifically on healthcare,
right.
But I'm waiting to see the fine lines, because if you have a good infrastructure allocation, much of that can move into health infrastructure.
Ma'am,
what the government nursing colleges. Sorry,
yeah.
Yes, Vishnu.
No, 157 new nursing colleges co-located with 157 medical colleges. That, to me, as I remember it, that's the only announcement in healthcare. Would you have expected more?
That and the research, I would have expected more, but that one and the research point. Yeah. So I believe that we should go as a healthcare sector, look at the infrastructure and look for more allocations there. Look at the tourism, because medical value travel is definitely getting a big push from the government. So I'm hoping that the tourism will have allocations for medical tourism. And interestingly and importantly, that the research which is starting off small, that we can highlight more on research, because the future for healthcare is really about new methodologies. The offshoot on the AI and those focus will also have a health specification.
Impact.
So we have to work with the budget, and if we're putting more money in the hands of the consumer, we know that this is predominantly a self-pay market in India.
No, and I think with the finance minister really taking advantage of the economy's resilience currently at a time when we are the fastest growing economy amongst all major economies. But I'd like to bring in Mr. Sidhwa here to talk really about direct tax. So when we're looking at the headlines, it's also about tax collection and the government wanting to expand the tax base. They need to fund their welfare schemes. They're looking for more expansion for infrastructure investment also. How do you think these changes will it increase a tax base? What do you think would be the biggest impact of these, besides, of course, putting more money into the pocket of a consumer?
So I think the finance minister started off by saying that we have done a lot in terms of bringing compliance in a good place, in the sense she talked about how many returns actually got processed electronically, how many days refunds took to get issued, and the number of days coming down going forward. She also laid down the path of something which is called the consolidated return form. So that means one return form, a common return form for all types of assessees. And this is based on a philosophy of having a smart questionnaire. So the return actually starts off with a series of smart questions, which when answered point a taxpayer to the correct return form.
The Saral form plus, right?
Exactly. So today, you actually have to read through all the forms, what each form you're actually supposed to fill. This will actually take you through a process of, through some smart questions, get you to the right form. So I think that's a very good step. It's going to help us. The other two things that I felt done, which is really very good, is opening up and freeing up the appeal process.
Yes, I know.
Now, one of the things that has been announced is this creation of 100 posts of what she calls as Joint Commissioner of Appeals. And essentially, they will take over the pendency of low-level appeals. We need to look at the fine print to actually see what is the criteria and cutoff between a Commissioner Appeals and a Joint Commissioner Appeals. But essentially, today what's happened is because of the pendency through COVID and the fact that the faceless appeal system has really not completely kicked off. There's a huge pendency at that second level of appeal, just after you complete an assessment, just after, and that's revenue locked up for the department, as well as unnecessary hassles for taxpayers. So unlocking that seems to be a very, very smart move.
Let's just see if we can go across to Nidhi at... If we can, okay, let's go across to Mr. Chatterjee, joining us now, the Managing Director of the Lakshmi Group. Mr. Chatterjee, for you, what are the big headlines out of this budget? Are you happy with the whole infrastructure expansion, the growth focus that this budget is giving?
Absolutely. I think given that this is a last budget of this term of the government, it is a bold, development-oriented budget. In terms of reducing taxes, I think that will also be increased expenditure, especially in the middle class. The focus of green and organic is very good for the plantation sector, agriculture sector. And I think the focus on capital formation, the fact that the government has increased capital formation and over the last 3 or 4 years, it's kept increasing capital formation and building a digital stack for governance. All of this should ease doing business, especially in areas such as the Northeast, where it is difficult to the cost of doing business is high.
Right.
So I'm very pleased with the budget.
All right. Well, let's just go straight across to my colleague Nidhi Razdan at the Confederation of Indian Industry. The markets have given a resounding thumbs up, more than 1,000 points up. Nidhi, what are some of the other reactions that you're getting?
More people will come, yeah. Yes. Easily, yeah.
All right, we'll come back to Nidhi. Okay,
welcome
go ahead,
to
Nidhi,
everyone from the CII NDTV special here in Delhi. We're getting first reactions from members of Indian industry. Please let me welcome Mr. D.K. Sen from Larsen & Toubro, also Vipin Sondi, who works with CII on future mobility, on innovation, technology. So let me first ask both of you, the overall question, Mr. Sondi, to you first. Very simply, what were your big takeaways overall from the budget?
Thank you, Nidhi. I think, one, it was a shorter speech than before and therefore very effective. But I think the impetus on growth, on jobs, on women, on youth, but technology-driven, which is where, we have a lot of focus, was tremendous. The second was, I think, keeping fiscal prudence, which means a target of 5.9% down from 6.4% and perhaps 4.5% by FY 25-26. And finally, a massive capex 33% rise over last year, which I believe is third in succession, which is a great multiplier for all of these. And that puts income into people's pockets. And the only thing I hope is 50% of this capex is spent in rural India, where you can have then jobs as well as all other benefits.
Mr. Sen, if I could get your first thoughts, And something I was asking an earlier panelist as well, in terms of the government's own record of this spending, which, you know, last year it was at 7.5 lakh crores, this time it's 10 lakh crores. In terms of implementation, are you satisfied that it's being utilized properly?
I'm very happy about the way the budget has gone. I think she has done a fantastic job. She addressed the right areas where to be spent. Increasing it from 7.5 lakh crore to 10 lakh crore is very great. In fact, I was anticipating that this will come. At this point of time, I told you that 47% is yet to be allocated, the capex expenditure. I think large part will be addressed. More importantly, she has addressed the other part, which is state capex. She has given incentives to the states to increase their capital expenditure, which was so far about 4 lakh crore per year. I think it will go up substantially now. Apart from this, she has addressed the more important areas like MSMEs and all that. They really had been having badly hit. She increased the areas where to incentivize them. Further, for the dispute resolution, a lot of arbitration cases are stuck up in finally deciding. So that she has done, she has promised the entire fraternity in a graded way. She's going to address all the arbitration cases where the award is received by this. So this is very good for us, and we're looking forward to it because this will release a lot of capex to the infrastructure industry again, which will be much good for the country.
So in terms of job generation, I mean, just to explain it very simply to our viewers, more money in infrastructure, more investment, it means more jobs. Does it mean better quality jobs as well?
Well, I have to say here that the capex expenditure is increased, but they must allocate to the right kind of people. You know, so in this case, we have something called QCBS system of award. That means quality and cost based. The award and circular has come out last year. It's not being implemented properly. So government must implement it in the right spirit. So right now, the limit of the level of jobs where QCBS will be applied is much lower. They must increase it, and all infra projects must come under the QCBS award, where they will be going to the right people, and there can be gradation of contractor who can address this.
Right. Mr. Sondi, just on the tech innovation front, since that's your area of expertise, what have you sort of taken away from this budget as being the big positive?
Before that, and I will come to that, before that, on your question of jobs, as far as infra is concerned, I think how do you raise the productivity of a country as a whole? If we can get to point A by point B faster, if we can transport our goods faster, you automatically enhance the entire productivity. For that, if you use technology, the quality of jobs keep going up. But my 5 takeaways on the technology front, and there are many. Number one, I think there is a great amount of focus on coordination between academics as well as industry. Now, we have something in technology called the proverbial valley of death, technological valley of death. Between a good idea in academics and taking it to the market, it falls through. So number one, I think collaboration between public and private research institutions in areas like 5G, pharma, AI. This will be meaningful research, meaningful innovation. 2, focus on emerging and critical areas like IoT, green tech, circular economy. There was a lot of focus on green and circular. Millets as well. 3, focus on skill development. This is where your question comes in. On AI, mechatronics, robotics, etc., 3D printing. Now for that, we are creating, or the government is creating skill centers, and that's positive as well. And 4th, encouragement of on-the-job training and industry-relevant training in academia. We need to have curricula which is focused on what will create meaningful jobs for young people. And finally, what I really liked, a unity mall in states for the promotion of one district, one product for our traditional arts and crafts and enabling them to go to market. We've seen indigo dying in Rajasthan actually slipping away. This will bring forward our traditional arts and crafts.
You've actually really summarized that well. I don't know, maybe you should look at a career in writing as well, because it summarizes it so well. Mr. Bhutani is with us, and he's been taking us through, especially the tax structure and what this new tax structure is going to mean. We've talked a lot about the slabs and the change in that. But we also have an old tax regime, and we have this new tax regime, which the government seems to be encouraging now. do you think there is an incentive for people to move to the new regime? Because it doesn't, include things like, your house rent exemption, etc., etc. So that's been something that still kept people with the old one.
Correct.
But what would you advise people to do?
Well, the underlying philosophy of giving an option to the taxpayer is to not take away what you have given up, but disincentivize them by saying that if you don't move to the new regime, then you will be taxed at a higher rate. So it's like a menu option that has been given to employed as well as self-employed. You pick and choose. I think either of the measures would not have been very popular if the government would have said that in our pursuit to simplify the tax system, not give away all these exemptions like housing and others you spoke about, then in that case, taxpayers are not going to be happy. So it's a menu. But I think that from a medium to long-term standpoint, and if you look at the larger vision of a new direct tax code, all these exemptions could become history. The government may want to move to a more simplified rate structure. As you saw, the new rate structure is talking about someone with an income of 9 lakhs paying 45,000 rupees. So that's the simplification part. Now, the figures that she read out, 9 lakh, 15 lakhs, and what is the savings of 20%, 25%, are on an assumption that you're not claiming an exemption. So that seems to be the future direction. I just wanted to come on one more thing. Vipin spoke about the fiscal deficit. Yesterday in the economic survey, the chief economic advisor was a bit hesitant to give away whether he'll be able to meet the 4.5% fiscal deficit target in financial year 25-26. I think she seemed more confident today. But please bear in mind, it's predicated on tax collection. She's been able to meet the 4.6% fiscal deficit target this year only because of robust tax collection. Though the GST collections do not form part of the budget exercise, her corporate tax collections have been good. So bear in mind, she's making a very important assumption that for 2 fiscal years, this tax collection buoyancy that has been achieved both for GST and direct tax collection is going to continue for the next 2 years.
But does this budget do anything for, for example, exports, which have been on the decline, which has been a worry? And given the concerns about inflation, the depreciating rupee, where does this budget place us?
We will need to look at the fine print if there is anything for exporters, but I did hear her mention that her thrust on manufacturing is to encourage exports. So that's one statement that came out very positively. She also spoke about changes in the inverted duty structure. She mentioned about the toy industry and other aspects in order to encourage manufacturing. So there are 2 elements to it. One is how do you encourage manufacturing, and second is how do you make your manufacturing export competitive? I think that is really the big elephant in the room, because competitiveness of exports has been a challenge for Indian exporters, whether you look at textiles or you look at any other industry which are very export intensive. And an area where we have done very well is on the services side. But manufacturing, outside of specified manufacturing, we do have a challenge on making our exports competitive.
Nakwa, did you have a question?
Would you say it's a balance between welfare and विकास? दोनों को उन्होंने balance करके रखा निर्मला सीतारमन ने. Welfare पे भी focus है, विकास पर भी focus है.
Yes, it's a very good motherhood statement to make, and hence the overall theme of the budget is there is something for everyone in the budget.
And what I liked was that she started with the statement that this is the first year of the Amrit Kal, that means this is the juggernaut which the government has started rolling is going to continue for a long time. And this is a good progress towards that. She made almost every sector very happy, reasonably happy, and particularly for women, for personal tax, every area she's touched upon. I think this is going to be taken very positively by the people of India, and further we expect some more things to be refined.
Such as?
Like say, this manufacturing sector, I have spoken earlier also about everything to be done to make sure that things are manufactured more in India than imported. Everything. And in fact, there are some global tenders where international companies come and bid for it. If there is a deemed export benefit there, they get the deemed export benefit because they don't pay any taxes, whereas we don't have the benefit. So we pay more money. So Indian contract becomes more costly than the international contractor.
We're going to just take a moment to pause on that and come back and talk about that in some detail. But for now, I'm just handing it back to Sonia and Vishnu at the studio with more reactions to this Big Bang budget.
Right, and of course, Nidhi, now it's time to take a deep dive into those numbers. What are the big indicators that have come out? Of course, the big headline is that capex investment that we are getting. We've seen the allocation now raised by 33% to 10 lakh crores. So, Priyanshi, what are the big numbers of the 2023 budget?
Well, Sonia, in fact, that was one of the highlights out of the budget, that the capital expenditure has been increased by 33% to 10 lakh crore in the previous financial year, which is the current financial year. So in the previous budget, it was 7.5 lakh crore. Now it has been increased to 10 lakh crore. So the government definitely focusing on capital investments, and that's what the economic survey had also focused on. Now let's take you through the other big numbers from the budget 2023-24. The nominal GDP growth for the financial year 2024 is expected to be at 10.5%. Remember, this is the nominal GDP growth, which takes into account the price changes and inflation as well. The real GDP growth, as expected by the economic survey, is going to be around 6.5% according to the economic survey. But this above 10% figure is taking into account inflation as well. Now, the gross revenue in financial year 2024 will be 10.44%. The GST target for 2023-24 is up 11.95% to 9.6 lakh crores. Remember, GST collections have been increasing for the last few months. Just in the month of January, we recorded the second highest ever GST collections, and the GST collection target for the current financial year has been increased, for the upcoming financial year has been increased by over 11%. Now let's come to the fiscal deficit, which of course is a very important indicator for the overall health of the economy, because fiscal deficit is essentially the difference between the expenditure and the receipts of the budget. So as much fiscal deficit is essentially the difference between what the government is spending minus what the government is receiving. So it's essentially an indicator of how much the government will have to borrow to fund their expenditure. For the financial year 2024, it has been pegged at 5.9%. For the current financial year 2023, the previous budget put it at 6.4%, and that target has been met as announced by the finance minister. So next year, the fiscal deficit target has been reduced by 5.9%, and the finance minister even said that the aim is to reduce it to 4.5% by financial year 2026. We'll have to see when that happens. Now, 10 lakh rupees gross market borrowings in financial year 2024, which is at 15.43 lakh crore disinvestment target as well for financial year 2023-24. There's also 51,000 crore rupees total subsidy for the year that has been announced, and 3.74 lakh crore food subsidy that has been announced, and it was previously 1.9 lakh crore. Now the allocation for Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Generation Act, that has been at 60,000 crores. So these are the major numbers that have come up from the budget, as many people were pointing out that the budget seems to have a mix of benefits for personal tax and also benefits for capital expenditure, for Manrega. So these are the major announcements that have been made in the budget by the finance minister.
Priyanshi, and interesting, of course, also that still that Manrega allocation is still is now at 60,000 crores. So Manrega welfare schemes also very much the centerpiece, even as the focus is on growth and capex outlay.
I think one of the key points which we were talking about is linking data. DigiLocker, which I use, which I think is brilliant, absolutely. Aadhaar and PAN. What is it the government is trying to achieve? Because until you told me, I didn't know. I thought your final financial document is PAN. It's not.
So, I mean, there are a number of identifiers that are used across. So you have your Aadhaar number, you have your PAN number, you have your voter ID number, you have, I mean, the pension, if you're part of the national pension scheme, you have a PRAN number. All those are identifiers. And the idea is that if you want to triangulate data, or I assuming this is the ultimate objective of the government, is to detect data as to people who may have income and who are not possibly filing a tax return. The idea of triangulating all these sources of data is perhaps the objective of this exercise. So as you start triangulating, you need one single ID to be the triangulation point, and that is possibly the aim of this exercise. We heard the Finance Minister talking about the increase in the digital payments that are being made in the...
Yes.
So digital payments are being made, but are they able to actually detect non-filing or people who are having income and who are not declaring the income fully through those digital payments?
So with PAN becoming the main identifier, is that easier for people? We've also seen that KYC, that they've said that those it will be made a much easier process. Do you think that will help?
I'm sure there are complex algorithms that we don't see at this point of time, but I'm sure that the tax department, both in the GST as well as in direct taxes, are attempting to do to try and triangulate this data and make sense of it all. And perhaps making PAN the primary document is the motive for this.
Mr. Bivecha, what about for senior citizens? Because we've seen also that savings which they can now put, which is under the Senior Citizen Savings Scheme, has doubled. What's the big message for senior citizens in this budget?
I think the two messages. One is definitely, in terms of higher rebate that they can get. And also the idea is that, it makes it simpler for them in terms of, if you have a higher rebate or you don't have to pay those taxes. So it makes the life simple for them. So I think these are the messages I would say, yeah.
Just to come back to the entire digital point, I was actually taking down a few notes over here. Digital payment showed an increase of 76%. That's whopping. In transactions in 2022. They've an outlay of 7,000 crores for e-courts. That simplifies matters. So again, this entire processing through a digital network, 100 labs for developing applications to use 5G services. So the backbone, already increasingly the backbone, they're trying to strengthen that, right? Any one of you?
Yes, so government is actually looking at strengthening their whole application process, which is the backbone of, processing your tax returns, doing the assessments, processing the refunds, So that whole process is one of the focus areas of the government, and they have been really at it, and they are looking at how do I really improve my systems and make it more robust. Right. So that is the process which the government has actually been working on also with authorities, yeah.
And even if you see the GST end, which is the backbone for GST compliances, it's fairly complex. And at times you find that the government may actually be ahead of taxpayers, on their IT system. So I do believe that, they are focusing, the government does have IT infrastructure, and the fact, like we spoke about, triangulation of return filings, so that the data is all available with the government, and they're able to conduct assessments and detect any evasion.
We're just getting some voices in also from the Confederation of Indian Industry. So let's go back across to Nidhi. Nidhi, what are the latest reactions you've got coming in?
Right, well, welcome back to the CII headquarters here in Delhi as we talk to leading names from Indian industry reacting to this big bang budget. Happy to welcome Suchitra Ella of Bharat Biotech first on the panel today. First, your overall reactions to the budget, which seem to be largely positive, but particularly for the health sector, which obviously is what you'd be interested in and what we'd like to know.
Hi, Nidhi. This has been a positive and forward-looking budget on the overall space. If we look at it, an impetus that is required for all of us in order to bounce back and move the economy forward in the years to come, and also with the longer vision that we have as a country for India at 100. It looks very balanced. It looks upward to me. And there's been a lot of, there's almost been a good balance in terms of all sectoral areas and focuses and interventions that need to come in at this point of time. Coming particularly to the health segment and to the pharmaceutical and to the life sciences industry, the impetus and the thrust that is going to come about in terms of the centers for excellence that are being being initiated for higher innovation and higher R&D collaborations, which would be very important for the life sciences industry as a whole, because we are moving towards product development and clinical research, and of course international quality norms and standards that that kind of like broadly cover all our products when they get into the global market. So that is an important step going forward for the sector as such.
So you're saying in terms of research and development?
Right, because we...
And do you think the pandemic kind of spurred that on?
Research has been happening in pockets. It's mostly contained to the labs, to the national laboratories that are already there, established very many years ago and decades ago. But then applicational research is what we need to be focusing on in order to build products from India. Because generics are there, but then generics are not the high-value products that we normally look into. They can give you short generation of revenues, but in the short term, but the actual high value comes from original molecules and original research.
Okay, so very positive, as you say, overall, and for healthcare as well. Let me welcome Janmay Sinha, the chairman of BCG India as well. Thank you, Mr. Sinha, for being with us. Are you also giving it 11 out of 10?
Look, I just want to put it in context. We are in B20 this year. The world is looking at India. If you look at The Economist and all, they were all saying India is the story. And in a time of such uncertainty, where we needed to manage the prudence around the budget to get to 6.4 and talk about the future strategy with the budget, and yet not cut back on the investments in infrastructure, soft and hard, and to actually start taking the transition to green very seriously, has been a budget which is very predictable in terms of its continuation over the last 4 years, and good for business. Whenever there is business predictability, business likes it. And the domestic consumption will also increase with the cuts in taxes for the middle class, which will, when you look at two-wheeler sales and all falling, that will get a fillip straight away and immediately. So I think it's a very, very prudent, safe and solid budget, which is one which... I don't like the tamasha budgets, which have all these big announcements. I like budgets which are sustained and continue over a period of time.
Someone called it a quiet budget, but a good,
important,
quiet budget.
Powerful, solid budget, but not one full of tamasha, other than the fact that millets got a lot of time in the budget.
You don't seem to be too thrilled to hear that. But Mr. Bajaj, what did you think? And, given as Mr. Sinha was mentioning, these uncertain times we live in globally, how does this budget place us? And does it place us on that road to 6.57% economic growth, or do we still need to kind of watch how that goes over the next few months?
I agree overall with what Janmay said, and I would just add one more word, saying that it was a very balanced budget. So it balanced growth with fiscal prudence, and that is something that we were hoping to see. The significant investment in infrastructure, so the public capex spend, the 33% increase is welcome, should be a big boost to economic growth. But look at it along with that, the additional support, one more year to states for improving urban infrastructure, creating the right environment for municipal bonds, so that this is not just a one-year exercise. This is something that is then ongoing towards your query that the 6.5%, 7% growth, will we see it coming on? Very much this should support that. As we are starting to see growth coming, it's not that growth comes only to large companies. It comes to companies of all sizes. And the additional 2 lakh crore credit guarantee scheme to MSMEs, again, very welcome. So they've thought through various aspects of what needed to be done. Another ask of CII was to help those at the lower income segment and the rationalizing of income tax over there. Again, yes, again a welcome move. And finally, I would say to encourage manufacturing in India. A number of initiatives have been suggested, just correcting the inverse customs duty structure where relevant, cutting customs duty where relevant on parts, on raw materials, on inputs. All of these go towards creating a robust foundation for growth, not only for the coming year, but for coming years ahead.
Right. Mr. Rakesh Mittal is also with us from Bharti Enterprises. Mr. Mittal, your thoughts?
Well, I would say, first of all, this budget is in continuity on growth orientation as well as on the inclusive agenda of the government. That is something which I believe is the fabric which continues, and we've seen this in the past year budgets as well. And I think more importantly, containing the fiscal budget within fiscal deficit within 6.4% in spite of all the pressures the government had is a clear sign that the roadmap to 5.9% next year and 4.5 by 2025 is something which is doable, and I see that will happen. I would have never seen a very high focus on the manufacturing side, which in the last couple of years we've seen, including the PLI schemes. We've seen 150 plus manufacturing units on mobile phones, and with the custom duty exemption or concessions which have been granted, that will bring down the prices of mobile devices. But I think more importantly, I would say 2 or 3 big areas of focus which I saw. One was setting up 100 labs, 5G labs in engineering colleges across India to develop solutions on smart classrooms, on precision farming, on healthcare. So I think these are the areas where 5G will be the rock bed or very strong foundation to carry on all these initiatives into the rural hinterland of the country. So unconnected will become connected with a high rollout of 5G and availability in the next year and a half.
So in other words, a very technology-driven.
That is right. That is right.
Push, yeah.
The second, I would say, on the tourism, that was a big focus which the Finance Minister talked about, and more importantly, in public-private partnership and a mission mode. I think anything which Prime Minister Modi has launched in a mission mode has had great success, and we've seen huge positives coming out of there. A DBT scheme to scale 47 lakh youth on tourism. I think these are the things which will not only generate employment, but also bring in tourists not only from international overseas countries into India, but more domestic tourism as well. If we see the last couple of years, a lot of amount have been spent on infrastructure. We also saw 10 lakh crore being provided on the infrastructure for the next year. I mean, all this will lead into religious tourism, medical tourism, which are huge opportunities for India. On the farming side, agriculture, I think clearly I am seeing a crop diversification program focus by the government. We heard her talk about millets. We heard also moving 1 crore farmers into natural farming. I think all these things are to ensure that the yield per hectare productivity goes up, farmers' income move up, and more importantly, can we look at technological interventions in the farming sector? I would say all in all, this is something which are huge positives. Launch of aspirational 500 blocks will ensure that there will be a lot of investment going in. An interesting
update actually is, and I think that's being reflected on our screens as well, that the markets were cheering the budget a little while earlier, but they seem to have not be cheering as much as they were a little while ago, Mr. Bajaj. I mean, this volatility on the markets, it's not that it's unusual. One has seen that after budget speeches earlier also. But is that because people are reading the fine print and perhaps things are popping up that the markets might not be so thrilled about?
Well, I've not had a chance to take a look at the fine print.
They were about 1,000 points up. Now they're only about 400 points up compared to what they were an hour ago.
So as we see the fine print, we'll react if there is something to be reacted to. But I think overall the measures that have been announced today are very positive. The God is obviously in the execution, and so we have to see that they get executed well. And if there are some issues in the fine print, that is something then that we will take up as appropriate also.
Right. Mr. Sinha, your thoughts on this market volatility, is it a big deal?
I really feel that on the day of the budget, even the markets don't know whether to be volatile or not. So they just keep moving up and down to keep everyone attentive. But I really feel that, the long-term plumbing that is being put in place will help the foundations of the economy. There are 2 or 3 subtle points which were made, which are really important, which haven't got highlighted as much. India will become data rich before it becomes rich. And the government is trying to empower people to use their own data. Now, even the fact that you'll have a repository for information which you can share with different government agencies makes life a lot easier, and you hold that data. The other thing is that she said that regulators, financial services regulators, who have for a long time had a free run will have to look at their regulations and take public input. That's a really big deal because, the regulations have not been consistent, have been different across different regulators, and they have not really been answerable. And now they're being made to answer, which is a great thing. And then again, the transition to green. So I think long-term trends that are being picked up are really solid. And, I would not look too much on the movements of the needle.
Well, we said they were cheering and then, now they're cheering, but maybe not as much as they were earlier. I have to, take a break at this point. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us with your initial thoughts on the budget. As we said, we are also looking at the fine print. There seems to be a market-linked debentures tax as well. And insurance payouts above 5 lakhs are going to be taxed. So that's interesting, and that might, worry some people. But I'll just hand it back to the studio for the moment. Vishnu?
Thanks so much, Nidhi. And of course, there's some fine print coming out now on taxes. We're just going to discuss that. But first, let's not forget what this is about. This is the Finance Minister's 5th budget, the Modi government's last budget before elections next year in 2024 and key state elections coming up. So let's just look at the highlights of what some are calling Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's dream budget.
Personal income tax. I have 5 major announcements to make in this regard. These primarily benefit our hard-working middle class. The first one concerns rebate. Currently, those with income up to 5 lakh do not pay any income tax in both old and new regimes. I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime. Thus, persons in the new tax regime with income up to 7 lakhs will not have to pay any tax at all. I had introduced in the year 2020 the new personal income tax regime with 6 income slabs starting from 2.5 lakh. I propose to change the tax structure in this regime by reducing the number of slabs to 5 and increasing the tax exemption limit to 3 lakhs. The new tax rates are 0 to 3 lakh, nil. 3 to 6 lakhs, 5%. 6 to 9 lakhs, 10%. 9 to 12 lakh, 15%. 12 to 15 lakhs, 20%. And above 15 lakhs, 30%. This will provide major relief to all taxpayers in the new regime. My third proposal is for the salaried class and the pensioners, including family pensioners, for whom I propose to extend the benefit of standard deduction to the new tax regime. Each salaried person with an income of 15.5 lakh rupees or more will thus stand to benefit by 52,500 rupees.